Hello, Mike. How are you?
Hola. How you doing, man?
Fine, man. Well, we know a lot of things about you, because you have been here in Chile a lot of times, and but we would like to know how was your first approach to music? How you start playing drums and how you start to get interested in music?
I was introduced to music from the day I was born. I was born April 20th, 1967, and a few weeks later, the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper came out, and my dad fed me music from the minute I was born. The Beatles, The Who, Led Zeppelin, all that stuff in the late 60s. And I was literally, the only 5-year-old kid with like this huge record collection of hundreds of records. I was just always a music fan. Then later on in the 70s came, stuff like Kiss and the Ramones and all kinds of things. And I just always knew I'd be a musician. And when I was 11, I got my first real drum set. But at that point, I was already, banging on things and just a music fan. So that's how it began.
Oh, cool. So you have always been known for being a rock drummer. But a progressive rock drummer, right?
Right.
So, for you, what really means progressive music? What's the difference between regular rock and progressive rock? What's the
Right.
meaning? The
Well,
difference?
for starters, I should point out that even though I made my name in progressive music with Dream Theater for 25 years, I could have gone down any road. When I went to Berkeley, I met John Petrucci and John Mayung, and we formed Dream Theater because we wanted to do very progressive music, a lot of odd time signatures, long songs. But that was only one of my interests. I met them and we went down that road. But when I went to Berkeley, I was also a big thrash metal fan, listening to, at that point, Metallica was just coming out, and Slayer and Anthrax and Megadeth, and so I could have went down that road. Or I was also a big classic rock fan, like I mentioned before, the Beatles and The Who, Led Zeppelin. So I could have went down that road, but I ended up going down the progressive rock road with Dream Theater. And, to me, that was always, it's a difficult road because it's for a very select audience,
Right.
very long songs,
Right.
very complex parts at times. But because it's such a select audience, they're also incredibly devoted. So that's why Dream Theater, over a long period of time, finally built up a big audience. And then when I left Dream Theater 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I lost track, but that's when I wanted to do all of these other styles like that I just mentioned. So I do thrash metal with Metal Allegiance, and I could do classic rock with the Winery Dogs, and I go out and play with Twisted Sister or Avenged Sevenfold. So now I get to do all of these different things.
Right.
I like. And now here with Neil Morse, that's more of the progressive rock side,
Right.
So yeah, but that's the thing. Progressive rock is very, very intricate music, very, very theatrical. Like what you'll hear with Neil Morse Band tonight, it's almost like watching a movie or reading a book, So it's more than just a band playing songs.
And apart from rock music or metal music, what kind of music had got your attention lately? Or
Lately, I mean, I'm always going to be a rock or metal fan. I don't really listen to like jazz or classical or Latin, I'm just always going to be a rock guy. And within the rock and metal world, I listen to everything from U2 to Sepultura,
Right.
I just like good music, whatever style it is. I don't know. I still love the classics. I still listen to the Beatles, and I still listen to, a lot of new bands. Like my son is in a band doing like very extreme stuff, at the blast beats and fast double bass, and I like listening to that stuff as well.
So, what's your opinion on the direction rock and metal is going on right now, and particularly with this style called gent?
Yeah. Well, that's, like I just mentioned, my son's band is kind of doing that sort of thing. He's in a band called Next to None, and they're kind of dabbling in the gent scene. You know, it's a little bit like Periphery or Between the Buried and Me, Meshuggah. I mean, I think that stuff is amazing. You know, I think it's the next logical step for progressive music. It's just taking everything that's heavy and making it heavier, and everything that's complex and making it even more complex. You know, it's all about 8-string guitars and crazy double bass drumming. So yeah, I have an appreciation for it. To me, it's part of the evolution of progressive music. And I think it's more like, you know, prog for this generation.
Cool. And well, I would like to name you some drummers, and what's your opinion or what pops into your mind? Okay, so Bill Bruford.
Bill is one of my all-time drum heroes. I've gotten to know Bill through the years and spent some time with him, and he's a great, great guy. And sadly, he doesn't play anymore. He's retired. But between Yes, King Crimson, and UK, I mean, that's 3 of the big prog rock bands of all time, and he was the drummer for all 3. And then he also toured with Genesis as well, so you throw that in there. He's pretty much the prog father.
Yeah. Neil Peart.
I think if I had to name one guy that probably had the biggest impact on me, it would be Neil. And I mean, I grew up with classic rock drummers, but when I discovered progressive music, Neil was the guy that I obsessed over and made me want to play the big giant drum kit. And he was the one that helped teach me how to play odd time signatures. I would just study his drum parts. And he was probably one of my biggest influences and heroes when I was a teenager. And again, I've become friends with him as well, and that to me is one of the greatest honors.
Jojo Mayer.
Jojo's amazing. I've done some clinics with him when I used to do clinics, you know, maybe 15 years ago. And the thing I love about him is that he's got all the groove and the technique of like jazz drummers, but he also has like balls and you know, like, yeah, he's got power and balls and personality. So he's kind of like the best of both worlds, jazz and rock and metal.
And Gene Hoglan.
Gene the Machine. I mean, he's one of the thrash legends, and he's he's played with so many bands, from Testament to, you know, to Dark Angel and everything in between. And you know, he's one of those guys, like, he's just impeccable. It's just perfect, you know. It's like a clock, like a machine. And his double bass work is incredible. I mean, I love even the latest Testament album. The drumming on it is incredible. And you think he's been doing this now for 25, 30 years, you know, and he's still innovating and still getting better.
Yeah, well, and you will be here in Chile in October with your band. Can you tell us about that a little bit? What can we expect from that show?
Well, it's not really my band. It's not a real band. It's not a project. It's just an event for the fans to finally play these group of Dream Theater songs that I wrote and never got to put together and perform live. When I was in Dream Theater, I wrote these series of songs that was about the 12 steps of recovery, and I had just gotten sober and wrote these interconnecting songs. And then when I finally finished the last piece of the puzzle, I left the band and never had the chance to complete the puzzle and then play it live. And this year I turned 50, and we had a big 50th birthday concert for me, and that was the first time I did it. And then suddenly I started getting these emails from all over the world. Oh, please come do it here, come do it in Germany, and come do it in Australia. And I got all these offers, and I was like, all right, you know, I'm doing it now. It's my 50th birthday. This is kind of a gift for the fans. So it's kind of like closure, you know. I don't plan on revisiting Dream Theater material. I haven't revisited Dream Theater material since I left the band. So this is kind of like a one-time thing for me and the fans to finally get to experience this. And not only the 12-step suite, but also, you know, a lot of other Dream Theater material that will be part of the show. And, you know, once it was announced that I was going to these other places, the biggest thing online was South America. Everybody, you know, the fans online, Chile and Argentina and Brazil, and they you know, it was very obvious that they wanted this show. So I was hoping that we'd be able to squeeze it into the schedule, and we did.